Welcome to Zoe Home Inspired Living. I'm Rina. One of the many wonderful blessings or gifts that I have received from the Lord Jesus Christ is sewing. And I got into sewing that was last year, and it was not really hard for me because growing up as a little girl in the province, I would watch my aunt sew with her, the old fashioned sewing machine with the big wheels and the pedal. She made dresses for a living, and every day I would watch her use her sewing machine, cut the fabric, and even the hand stitching. I have learned everything from her. And so, when now, as an adult, I finally found my way into sewing, it was like natural for me. And it's been a source of great joy, sewing and creating something out of fabric, and making skirts or dresses. And also I have been making throw pillowcases for my online store. So it's really been wonderful. In our church, the women wear long skirts and long dresses because the teaching is that the holiness that's in our hearts, that's from the Lord Jesus Christ, should manifest also outwardly in the way we dress. And so, especially when there's worship service, we wear a long skirt with a white top or long dress with a white blazer. That's what we wear during worship services. And even though I am not able yet to go to the house of God, to church, I only watch through live streaming, I still wear a decent skirt with a white top. And so I always need long skirts. And now that I am sewing, I have been making my own skirts. Like this skirt, it's a layered skirt that I made just recently. Okay? And so today we are going to sew another layered skirt. And we are going to use this fabric. It's premium woven cotton, and it's floral, of course. We are going to make this into layered skirt. And so let's start. First, we draw the layered skirt. There are 3 layers with 14-inch depth each layer. That includes all seam allowances. We're going to stitch the layers on top instead of underneath. It's more exciting that way. And we're going to use elastic or garter for the waist. Making this layered skirt is really simple. We will need 3 rectangles for the top, middle, and bottom layers. The top layer is the waist measurement times 1.7. You may use 1.5 times or even twice the waist measurement, but it would be quite difficult to put in the garter later on as the waist is very wide. The length of the middle layer is the length of the top layer times 1.7. I had used twice of the length before, but the finished skirt is so very wide and quite heavy already. So this time we'll try 1.7 times. For the bottom layer, the same formula is used. The width of my fabric is 64 inches. I cut the pieces along the width of the fabric. It's easier that way. So, for the middle layer, it's one whole width, which is 64 inches plus one half, which is 32 inches, total of 96-inch length of fabric. For the bottom layer, I used 2 64-inch widths and one half, making the total length 160 inches. The longer the fabric, the finer the gathering or shirring will be. I have cut the pieces and this is the top layer. For the middle layer, I have 2 pieces. And for the bottom layer, I have 3 pieces. First, I'm going to stitch the pieces together for each layer. I started sewing after dinner for I can't wait for morning to start. What I'm doing here is I'm hemming the bottom part of the top layer. I don't have a serger or edger, so I'm hemming the edge for a clean finish. Now I'm going to stitch the 2 pieces of the middle layer together. I have decided to use a French seam because the gathered layers will be on top. It will be easier in the end. A French seam is a very clean and professional way to stitch 2 fabrics together. First, you stitch the 2 pieces on the right sides together, stitching as close to the edge as possible. Then stitch on the wrong side, making sure that you are covering the raw edge of the first stitch. I hope that my explanation makes sense. It's the next morning, and here I'm showing you that I have stitched the pieces for the bottom layer together using French seam. You can see how clean the seam is. Now I'm going to hem the top of the bottom layer to avoid fraying. This portion will be the one to be gathered or sheared and stitched on top of the middle layer. I have done the same thing with the top and middle layers the night before. This type of edging is super thin as you possibly can. I hope that you're following what we're doing here. Here, I have done all the edging for the bottom layer. As you can see, the edging is clean. This is important because it will be stitched on top. Before we gather the layer, I have stitched the 2 ends together using French seam. Now it's time to make gathering stitches. We'll adjust the length to the longest stitch. I don't bother to adjust the tension as it's easy to gather even without adjusting it. Now we carefully pull the top thread and gather the fabric up to halfway. After doing the first half, we gather the other half. Doing it this way will help us make the shearing uniform, especially as we're working with a very long material. After gathering, we attach the bottom layer to the middle layer and pin it in its place. The width of the gathered layer should be the same as the width where we will stitch it on. Make adjustments on the gathering when necessary. I find pinning gathered layers or ruffles quite tedious, but as in other things like painting, patience is the key. Now we're all set to stitch the gathered layer onto the other layer. This is the exciting part. Just carefully follow the gathered stitches, making sure that the fabric underneath is always aligned and the width is maintained. For me, this part of sewing is really satisfying. Now we're going to stitch these two bottom layers to the top layer. We have attached all the layers together. Now we prepare to stitch the tunnel for the elastic or garter. I'm using a 3/4 garter or elastic. Make sure that the fold that you are going to make should be adequate for the garter or elastic to pass through. Not too tight and not too loose either. Stitching very near the edge is the best way, so try to do that whenever you are hemming. Don't forget to leave a space unstitched for the garter or elastic to pass through. I want to stitch the top of the fold about 1/2 centimeter. This will help the elastic stay in place, and it will also make the skirt look more attractive. Now we're going to put the garter inside using a safety pin. This may seem old-fashioned, but it always works. First, we're going to anchor the other end so it won't be pulled all the way inside. Now we stitch the two ends of the garter together using a zigzag stitch for more strength. I can easily do this part by hand stitching, but we can also do it on the machine and it will be faster. Now we're going to stitch close the opening for the garter. how uniform the shirring of the garter is. We're going to hem the skirt. Before I began stitching, the skirt measured 36 inches. I have at most 1 inch of hem, leaving 35-inch length of skirt, which is what I want. Again, remember to stitch as close to the edge as possible. This will bring you happiness, believe me. The layered skirt is done. Remove all gathering stitches peeking out. They are easy to spot because they are long and loose. Make sure though that you don't catch the permanent stitches. Shoulders and my back are aching all over because of sewing the whole morning today. I have so enjoyed sewing the 3-layered skirt with you. Sewing is really so satisfying for me. I used to tell family members that I wish I could sew all day long, but that's not possible because my body is weak because of my illness, and also because I have other responsibilities with the family and in tending our home and my online business. Actually, I said the same thing when I first learned to paint bags. I said that after my morning devotion, I just wanted to paint and paint, but that wasn't possible. And so same thing with sewing now. I just want to sew and sew, but I have other responsibilities. I have said I have other responsibilities in life, more so than ever before. So happy with how this skirt turned out. It's what I had hoped to be. And later on in the video, towards the end, I am going to model it. Okay, to try to stand up long enough to model it. And I hope that I had inspired you to try on new things, like new hobbies. Yes, like sewing.